You're tuned into the stellar award-winning internet radio station.
You're at the right place at the right time.
Yes, Lord Radio.
Hold up. Wait just a minute. It's Roz on your radio.
Keep it locked right here.
Showcase, fellowship, inspire. Showcase.
Hey, it's Roz on the radio.
Showcase, fellowship, inspire.
Yes, Lord Radio. Now it's time for another Yes, Lord Radio exclusive.
Hey, everybody, it's Roz on the radio, and you're listening to another YLR exclusive. My guest today is gospel music artist Michael Winans, who is here to share his story in the involvement in what turned out to be an $8 million financial scam that was promoted in church pulpits. As you guys probably know, earlier this year, he was sentenced to federal prison, and this week, Mike is going to be turning himself in to serve nearly 14 years in prison, but he wanted to share the story with us today. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Ross, for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, of course, I would have wished that we could have spoken on different terms, about the music or about the legacy that you've come from. So this is bittersweet for me, and I know other people as well. But let's talk about this. This actually happened back in 2007. And so for the most part, it seems that you've been silent about this. And so now we're just within hours of you beginning this nearly 14-year sentence. Why do you believe it's important for you to share your story now?
Well, because I never spoke at all, and I ended up pleading guilty because of the advice given to me by my attorney, which essentially was poor advice, especially since this is the case involving money. So, I have records, I have documentation proving otherwise of what I was convicted of ultimately, which is a travesty, very much so in a sense. It may be bittersweet, that we're talking right now, but I'm very confident that this sentence is going to get substantially reduced, if not totally eliminated, because of the evidence that will be presented in the case very shortly.
I see. So now, when we look at the numbers, what we're dealing with is more than 1,000 investors being recruited, $8 million later. And when we look at the people, people have said how this investment has destroyed their family, ruined their marriage, left some people destitute. That's what some of the media is saying. And based on some of the reports, some of the letters that people submitted. But this was done through the church pulpit. Tell us what was going on through your mind the day that you became involved in this, and how was the decision made to go through the church?
Well, that's just it. Those are reports that have come out that were not founded. A lot of them are baseless. 1,200 people involved. Well, they weren't involved with me.
Okay.
I wasn't in any church pulpits soliciting investment funds. So just those two things right there, which have led a lot of headlines, are not true at all. Even the $8 million, there's no documentation that's been shown. So a lot of these things that have been spoken are negligent claims, and they're erroneous. There are a lot of people who jumped on the bandwagon, who stated that they were owed money, that they gave me their life savings, that they gave me their kids' college tuition fund, people who never even met me. But because of my name, because of the nature of the situation and the sensitivity of it and the fact that I pled guilty, then it appeared that I was guilty of whatever they said that I was guilty of. So now I have to come out and speak because there were so many things that were incorrect. Even when it came to people who made claims, nobody had to present 1 ounce of documentation to the courts. Me pleading guilty took the burden of proof off of the government, and so my attorney chose not to fight for me, and the reason why he did that, I have reason to believe it was some other interest involved that I don't care necessarily to get into. What I do know is that he just, rolled over and basically just allowed me to be a sacrificial lamb for so many people who were culpable. Now, I'm not saying that I'm blameless. I didn't start the investment. I was the middle person. I was someone that was left holding the bag. The person who started the investment was a guy named Tim Hunt. He ended up coming to me one day and saying that the investment was over and that the money was lost. So once that happened, I owe about $1 million to people at that moment, and they don't know him. They know me.
Right.
And so I reached into my own pocket, paid a lot of money back to people from my own personal music business, because I'm a music producer. That's my profession. It isn't going around and taking money for investments. I only did that because I was encouraged to do so, and people, bought in because of my reputation, not just the Winans name. I didn't use religion to take people's name. I was already doing extremely well financially, musically, but I made some poor mistakes by allowing people to give me money to give to this guy Tim Hunt, and then when he told me that the investment was over, I was scrambling because I knew that people were owed money. One of the mistakes I did make was allowing people to still invest even once I found out that the investment was over. But it wasn't for the sake of me profiting. I was thinking, how can I pay these people back, and how can I find an investment that will take care of the outstanding debt? And so everything's been really misconstrued, and they've painted me as this monster who likes to go out and steal people's money, and this black sheep who has no understanding about the Christian values, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I recognize that this is not just a natural battle, but it's a spiritual battle, and the goal is for the enemy to try to get glory out of the situation, to paint myself and my family's name and reputation as a bad one so that people don't come to Christ. But he's under my feet. He won't win, and not only in the spiritual realm will we be successful, but even in the natural when I'm able to present the evidence through my new legal defense team through the appeal process.
So had you had any idea then that people were going through the church, and I don't know how they were doing this through the pulpit, but had you had a clue that they were doing that?
No, I don't know of anybody that was in pulpits. If they were, they weren't there because of my recommendation. What I found out is that the investment had, garnered so much attention that there were people out collecting money in the name of Mike Winans who did not know me, who weren't even giving me money.
Okay.
And so when those people even lost other folks' money, those people blamed me. So,
right.
So you need a fall guy in the whole situation. And so I'm being blamed for people's marriages, people's college tuition, by people who don't know me, who never met me, who never gave me a dime.
Right.
Now, I have responsibility for people who I was in contact with, but $8 million, 1,200 people, all of these numbers are just inflated because it's become so sensationalized, and so once I made my plea, then, they just called all of the dogs out, and I've been really accepting responsibility for something that I should not be accepting responsibility of. I know what mistakes I made, and I'm willing to take responsibility for those things.
Right.
But I don't owe $8 million to anybody. As a matter of fact, I paid back more than 75% of the money that ever even came to my hands. Now, that's never been reported, because to report that means that I am a person that was trying to make the situation right, and I'm being painted as a person that lacks integrity. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
During that time, because I hear you saying that you were the middle person, so obviously there were other people that were also recruiting these investors. And I understand that there's always got to be a guy that takes the fall. And I'm not taking any sides. I just, kind of want everybody to know that I like to know the facts, and I like for the truth to kind of get out there. Were there additional people besides yourself that were charged or sentenced?
No. That's when the story gets really interesting. The person, Tim Hunt, who originated the investment, he passed away. He died in 2011. And so he was never investigated, never charged, and obviously you can't convict a dead man.
Right.
And so then next in line was me. And there were other people who they said that they had interest in, but obviously they really wanted me because there's more of a story. There's other things that are going on behind the scenes as opposed to them just wanting to clean up corruption. There's several people that they could have gone after, but they decided that they wanted to just go after me,
right,
and just wanted me to walk away and just take the hit and just lie down. But I can't do that because that means that the truth wouldn't be able to get out. And so there'll be more going on when it comes to this story. This story has not ended, My prayer is that, the truth is out there and that people will be able to judge for themselves. I understand that there are folks out there who would blame me because that's all they've seen is an image of my face, and then the media saying that I took $8 million. I didn't take $8 million. If so, I want to know where it is, because I don't have it. I lost everything in this investment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a victim as well.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wants to hear that because, that's just not the popular thing to report these days.
Well,
But
how did you get involved in this? I'm just trying to understand more on this story. This is dealing with bonds.
yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I got involved. A family friend of mine introduced me to the gentleman, Tim Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that the investment involved crude oil bonds, a Saudi investment, and that, he was the direct link. And so I gave him money. Other people who I know gave him money. And, we thought everything was going well.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't think anything was illegal at all. And
Mm-hmm.
over time, there were other people who got involved, and, people started making money. They started spreading the word to
Okay, so they
everybody.
did start making money, and you saw a return on your investment?
Oh, absolutely. That's how the thing even began to grow,
Okay.
is because there were returns.
Okay.
But the way it's reported is that people gave me millions of dollars and I just ran off with it. No,
Right.
That's not true. There were returns that were coming back, and everyone was excited, and people were good and feeling great about things. And
Mm-hmm.
then there was a turn that took a turn for the worse. And, I was left with this responsibility. And in a sense, I think that I was sort of targeted because our reputation was a very positive one. I did a lot of things in the community in Detroit, a lot of public programs with the youth and mentoring folks. So my reputation, it wasn't just my family's name, but my reputation in the community in Detroit was very strong, and I believe that Tim Hunt saw that and saw an opportunity for himself to be able to make money because of the influence that I have with people coming and bringing their monies. Now that I look back, that makes more sense. And so after all these people get involved, now the chair gets pulled. And
Mm-hmm.
he didn't come to me, Tim Hunt, he didn't come to me and say the bonds are bogus. He didn't say those words. He says that the investment is over and the money is lost. That's different.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I'm thinking, well, what's going on? He just said, look, the investment's over. They pulled the plug. And I'm not sure who they were. Because the only person I dealt with was Tim.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, there were people owed hundreds of thousands of dollars on that day. So it's not like I had lag time to decide, well, what should I do now that I know that the investment is over?
Mm-hmm.
There were people waiting to get paid that day. And so I had to reach into my own pocket. And that's when people who wanted to get into investment that day, they gave money as well. And that was the mistake that I made by allowing new investors to come in. But here's the other thing, and I take full responsibility of that. But I'm 25 years old at the time. I don't know what a Ponzi scheme is.
Mm-hmm.
I never even heard that term. As a matter of fact, the whole Bernie Madoff thing didn't come to the news until well after the investment I was involved with was over. So I wasn't intentionally trying to hurt anybody, but
Mm-hmm.
I did know that I wanted to stop the investment. And as a matter of fact, I voluntarily stopped it. I wasn't stopped by the authorities. Nobody came and said, you have to stop this. I stopped it on my own because I recognized that it was a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so now there's this, notion out there that I was stopped in my tracks, and, it's a lot of things out there, but I can't worry about that. What I do know is that I serve a God whose grace is sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
And I did make mistakes. I didn't make the mistakes that are being reported, but I did make some mistakes, and I will take responsibility of that. And those people who are really owed, who are documented in my records, they will get their money back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the people that are going on the news saying that I owe them all of this money and I took everything that they had, those people will have to answer to the Lord.
There's a guy, and it's not just him, but this was one of the stories that I saw. But there was a guy that he is saying that his family collectively gave about $100,000. And again, I am not taking any one side. I just like to pull out things that I see. So this is interesting to me because there's an issue in the church that talks about our purpose and our purpose in giving. And Mike, just depending on what church you're at, it's hard for church members to give their money, their tithes and their offerings. And so depending on where you are, you've got ministers who have to spend half of their time talking about salvation. And then the other time they're talking about this principle of being a cheerful giver. And so when I saw this story, and mind you, I'm not in the middle of it, I'm just looking at it, I'm thinking, who are all these churchgoers who are giving this much money from the pulpit? I just did not understand that part.
Well, I'll say this, Roz, and I appreciate your candidness and, attempting to be objective as possible. I'll say this. The whole thing about churchgoers giving their money, that is a fabrication of the truth. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that people who go to church did not give in the actual investment.
Yeah.
But this was not a church investment.
Right.
That's not what this was. This was an investment that was available to, people in the church, outside of the church, but that's not what this is about. Mm-hmm. But the whole church thing is synonymous with my name, Winans.
Right.
So it's sensationalized to say he stole from churchgoers, because now people can understand that. It's like, it validates in people's minds what they think about a lot of ministers, a lot of pastors, that they take people's money. And so it's a way of getting people to view the story from a different type of lens that's considerably inaccurate.
Yeah.
But this was not a church investment. That's not what this was about.
Okay.
There were people who I don't know apparently were investing in. I don't even know. There was a group of people who I dealt with, and those people dealt with other folks. So there's so many claims out there that I can't speak to because I don't have that knowledge,
right? And
I don't want to not tell the truth about it. But there are claims that came up in the records of people who were not in my records, erroneous claims. There's absolutely no way they could have been owed the amount of money that they stated. And one of the issues that happened is when it became such a media blitz, especially in Detroit, they put out hotlines over the television. And so anybody could make a claim. You could have even made a claim, and your claim would have gone down as part of the restitution that I was responsible for paying.
Wow.
Because there was not any documentation that was required. Here's my thing. If anybody says that I owe them money, that's fine. Now we just have to produce documentation. That was the job that my defense attorney failed to do.
Right.
We wouldn't be at this point now if that would have been presented, because they're here. I have the records. So anybody can come and say, look, he owes me money. Now let's show what I owe you. And once that restitution hearing happens, those 1,200 people that they're reporting, they won't be in the courtroom because they don't have documentation.
Okay, so when is that hearing?
Well, there's a process. I'm in the appeal process deciding which type of appeal that I'm going to do, because there are a few routes that I can take. That decision should be made within the next week.
Okay.
Once that happens, then that will begin the appeal process. And once the case is opened back up and the amount of loss that I'm responsible for is brought to the table, then I provide the documentation. Then there'll be a restitution hearing, hopefully, where people who are owed would have to produce evidence of the fact that I owe them.
Okay.
And then we can just get down to the bottom of it. And I could attest to you and assure you that it would be nowhere in the ballpark of $8 million. Not even close, because that's not even a true statement.
Wow. This is thick. It is. You were 25 when this began, and here you are, you're 30.
31, yeah.
31. Okay. Yeah. And you're getting ready to voluntarily turn yourself over to begin this sentence.
Yes.
Well, what is going through your mind?
Well, I'm not happy about it. I mean, I have a wife. I have a 1-year-old daughter. It's not the best situation, but I recognize that when you make certain mistakes and when things happen in life, there are consequences for it, and you have to assume certain consequences. So I'm not happy about it, but I feel confident in the fact that the truth will come to the light. I also recognize that this platform to speak to people like you and others, it's not by happen chance. I have to take this time to be able to minister to people, to let them know, look, this happened to me, but God was still faithful and just to forgive me of my mistakes, and also to have grace on me to where I could spread his good news. Because ultimately, God has to get the glory out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
This is not about me. This is not about any particular person who considers himself a victim. But this is about the Lord being able to get glory. And the enemy has tried to distort my name, which will not work.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be revived. It'll be vindicated. He's tried to affect my family's name. That's not going to take place. He's tried to even cause people who are on the fence or offended by the church to now go further away from the church because of something like this. But
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that there's a reason why this is happening. It's greater than just me as an individual. And I have to be very sensitive to his spirit so that I will make the correct decisions from now on. And so it's not the best situation, but, you know, God is still good, and I'm going to use this platform for the best.
At the time, what was going through your mind as you were being told not to say anything, to give this guilty plea? Was there never a time that you said, you know what, maybe I should say something, because if I don't say anything and then I admit guilt, then we're going to have kind of basically what's going on right now?
Well, I wanted to talk the whole time, Rob.
Okay.
But I was advised by my legal counsel to say nothing.
Okay.
And so while it hurt inside, because I'm a very expressive person, and I love to communicate and let people know where I stand. And to have to walk and not be able to say anything and to give a no comment, it really hurt me at the core. But I was trying to follow directions, thinking
Okay.
that was the correct thing to do, because that's what I was advised by my lawyer to actually do. It's just that my lawyer's advice was poor advice, and it ended up making me look guilty of everything that was being stated, you know?
We're going to get out of here, but before we do, of course, I want you to share the song with us. I understand that you wrote a song especially to kind of share your feelings about this whole matter. Can you tell us a little about that?
I can. It's called My Side of the Story, so pretty self-explanatory. It talks about how I felt throughout this entire process and how God, you know, he gave me mercy, and he was always willing to hear my side of the story, even when I wasn't able to speak to other people about it. So that's the song. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And I'm very appreciative to you, Roz, for having me on the show. So thankful.
You're very welcome. And guys, of course, as always, you can catch me at facebook.com and twitter.com/Roz on the radio. For the recap of this show, check me out at rozontheradio.com. And also, I would love for you guys to leave your feedback throughout the day on the YLR shout box. This is Mike Winans with his side of the story. Be blessed.